evening, and we're back. It's the After Service podcast. We took a week off because lacrosse.
2 weeks, kind of. Actually, we did. We took two.
Did we take 2 weeks off?
Yep, because the previous week, we were doing a special one for the congregation.
Oh, that's right.
change
You're right.
stuff.
We did discuss the Constitution. That was different.
Bylaws and all that lovely stuff that churches unfortunately have to deal with once in a while.
Yeah. I'm going to move your head a little bit in the picture because right now, there we go. We were seeing it didn't fit the frame. I thought I had that fixed. But anyway, yeah, so welcome back, those of you who want to listen to more about the sermon and don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time chatting about changes in the Constitution or the bylaws of the church. So,
Yay.
yeah, I hope this is a bit more meaningful to you in that regard.
Yeah, I hope this will be a fun one. There's, we could talk about the last two sermons if you want, or just this last one. So it's up to you. But
Well, that would require me to remember either of them. But that's part of your job, is to remind me what we were talking about.
it is.
But one thing I just wanted to bring up, it's just a tiny thing, is I love waking up at 5 a.m. and the sun is already coming up. I mean, I don't like waking up at 5 a.m. I don't necessarily have to, but there's something about waking up and you see that there's already sunlight coming in that says, go ahead and get up. Why not? Why not get up? And boy, we had some terrible rain a couple of days yesterday, I guess. But today I got my second shot. I came home. I was feeling like it was like my birthday and I wanted to reward myself. So I took my laptop out to the back porch and I just answered emails for an hour and a half. It was wonderful. 70 degrees, gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I know you and I are very similar in terms of how we enjoy
Absolutely.
this.
For the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I've been, as much as I can, taking my laptop and my commentaries and everything else and working on the back porch. Yeah. Letting the dogs run. I don't have to worry about what they're doing or chewing or anything. And just, yeah. I'm there all day as much as I can be. Yeah, I get there around 9 o'clock in the morning. It's a little cold, but if you sit in the sun, it's not bad.
Yeah.
By the afternoon, you got to sit in the shade because it's a little warm.
That's awesome, though. And you have a new puppy, Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have a nickname yet?
Oh, Bofetti, Boba, little one.
Yeah. And in terms of size, how is he going to end up compared to
About
Chewie?
the same size as Chewie,
All right.
roughly. And they're starting to play more. So
Chewie's getting over his resentment of the brother.
I think he's getting. His was, what is that?
Yeah.
Why is it not leaving? He really for first week or two he just sat and looked at it like, why?
Yeah.
Right? And then it was, and he said a little bit of this, a little jealousy
Yeah.
over food or toys, really over toys. That's
Sure.
my toy. You don't get to have that toy.
Right.
And once in a while it's, I'm tired, go away.
Yeah. What's great about that is watching a dog react the way that your mind would have you react if you didn't have like a gate in front of it, right? Where you're like, get off of me. Oh yeah, never mind. I can't verbalize that. The dog doesn't. They don't have that. It's
And they don't have that filter of manners. It's like they're so harsh sometimes with each other. Like, no, you will not. It's harsh.
yeah,
But that's what they learn with. It's like, okay. He's never tried to hurt him, but scare him? Oh yeah.
yeah. There's sometimes I wonder if maybe we need to learn. We need to go back and learn something from our dogs.
Oh, there's so much I can learn from my dogs, like how
Yeah.
to greet people. Hi, I am so glad to see you.
Right. Or I'm going to bite your leg. There's that too.
Yeah. Oh, I don't like you. I'm biting you.
Yeah. That's the new greeting at church. Like, yeah, you make me uncomfortable. Roar, 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 roar. You know,
Right.
that would be fun. Well,
But
anyway.
yeah, just that always happy to see you. You're important. I always feel important when I come home because my dog's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should make other people feel important.
Yeah, but maybe not that. I mean, my dogs, this is not a podcast about dogs, by the
No.
way, but when I get home, 5 minutes, 5 hours, it's, oh, where have you been? We have this one dog, Murphy, who's just, he may as well be like my mom, Are you okay? Where have you been? Do you smell all right? And then Tilly's like, look, it's my toy, and I just go,
Yes, they can be overbearing.
yeah, I'm like, leave me alone. And then they're like, but we still love you. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I try not to give in to the, anyway. So let's talk about the message.
Let's talk about the message.
Yeah. I was actually talking to my counselor about the message this week, and just, discussing the idea of how you really can't differentiate between the message and the messenger. And just explored that topic a little bit, meandered to different places, but we talked about it within kind of the framework of worship music, and how some people, there are people who have fallen. There's some songs out there that who have either fallen or they've drifted away, who are worship leaders or songwriters, whose music I love. And I think, it's interesting how that doesn't necessarily apply to that. Your message doesn't necessarily apply to that. And that's something we can talk about later. But that we explored that a bit, as in, to throw out a name. I love Audrey Assad's voice. I love the songs that she has written. I think she's really anointed in many ways, and she's fallen away. Her songs are still songs that can be used to glorify God, because if you consider they were, the intent behind them as they were written, that it still exists and it lives beyond. So which I guess you could say that, the product of your blessing to people, the way you've made people feel, goes beyond your subsequent their subsequent interactions with other people. In
a sense, it's, well, I'd say two things. One, it still does affect in a sense because you had the conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it colors it, and you can make a choice to go, I'm not going to put the two together, but at least brings up the question.
Yeah.
If you know about it. But the other thing that's interesting, and the famous story of Balaam, Balaam with his donkey, right?
Love it. Yeah.
He's not a great guy, and yet he prophesied, and his prophecy is in the Bible. And so the messenger, in a sense, did not match the message.
Right.
God can use, and there's other instances too, in which God is using people who either fall away or are not godly to communicate exactly what he wants to have said. And so is it definitely possible? Absolutely. Especially in this. But my point, swinging around to keep people up to speed, is that, the messenger and the message need to match. Because however we communicate it, that's a part of what people hear, whether we want to or not. They hear how we communicate it. And we could, if you wanted to, we could go into the whole speech act theory, which is absolutely fascinating. But that's what it says, that how you communicate something is part of the communication. Fascinating stuff. But moving on, and in this case, in Mark 6, the issue was that Jesus is sending out the 12, and he gives them some instructions, and then we see their results a little bit. And my point is starting in verse 11, there is this, and if they don't receive you or listen to you, then shake off your dust and move away, and in judgment of them. And so it's, if they're not accepting the apostles, they're not accepting the message itself. The message and the messenger go together. So that's kind of what the main thing I wanted to say, but also wanted to differentiate away from, we think we need to be good people to communicate the gospel. And I wanted to really, I don't know if I as clearly as or strongly as I would like to say, communicate that that's not the case.
Yeah, it, I, I think sometimes, and I can tell you as somebody, this is one of the things that really crossed my mind on Sunday, that is somebody who is flawed, messy. You know, there's so many things about me that make me an imperfect vessel, whether it's the Word of God or worship. That if I was waiting for the ideal to fall into place, I would never do anything. And so that's a big deal. By the way, I just want to acknowledge that I don't have the chat up because I have to log into it for some reason, and I don't have the password. However, I have it up on Facebook, and I can see that Derek is there, and he said, "Glad you guys are back." And I'll say, "Hey, Derek, good to see you." And I may bring up YouTube as well. I'm not listening. I just know it exists, and I'll try to stay on top of that. So one of the things that I thought of, kind of more on the, if you'll forgive, kind of the negative side of things, where that we don't have to be perfect, but we still have a responsibility to represent.
Oh, right.
Right, is really personal. It's my brother, and if he's listening, I love you. Unlikely that he's listening, but if he's listening, I love you. That it took him a long time to come to Christ, a long time, and when he did it, it was through the relationship he had with another man. He became close friends. They played golf together, and he continued to speak into my brother's life. And at some point, my brother just went, it just connected. It was like, oh, I get it now. And that friendship between those two was really foundational to my brother's passion for Christ. And my brother started serving at a church, running ministries, super involved. At some point, that friend did something personally. It came out that he had been involved in some stuff that was really pretty terrible, and it extended into a personal affront to my brother, and that caused my brother to reject Christ completely, and he's never come back. And it's a heavy thing, and I can tell you more about it offline, but I think a lot of he's got a lot of anger towards me. He's got a lot of anger towards the church, because the person that introduced him to Christ fell really hard, and that people are watching. I said this a couple of months ago, that they're not watching you hoping to catch you screw up. I mean, there are those people out there, but there are people that you are leading, that you're shepherding through your testimony, and you don't have to be perfect to do that. Showing vulnerability is great, but there's I guess a responsibility or accountability to that. That's really heavy, isn't it? I didn't mean to get that heavy, but it just crossed my mind.
Yeah, I want to push into this a lot, actually. Okay. And let's see if we can help think this through together. So, I'm not sure exactly the launching place where I want to go. I have two thoughts, two different pieces to this that I want to try and see. On one hand, you have a culture who believes that what Christianity is about is being a good person. Wouldn't you say that's generally true?
Yeah.
Okay. That somehow they have they have heard that is what the message of Christianity is be good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And alongside that is also, that's not our message. Our message is that we're broken, we're fallen, we're sinful, and there is nothing in me that can earn God's approval in any way, shape, or form. And so this is, without discounting what you're saying, because I know exactly what you're getting at. It's like, but how do we deal with this? On one hand, yes, they're looking at us, but are we communicating that the message really is actually be good? And so when we fall, then the message was false.
Right.
Because
that's very brittle faith.
Right. And it's like, but that's, being good isn't our message. So
Right.
what are we doing to communicate that? Because it shouldn't be that if I as a pastor fell, that should not change shouldn't affect anybody's faith. If what I've communicated is I'm as fallen as everybody else. Do pastors sin? Oh gosh, they do. They do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We all do. So that, am I making any sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely. It reminds me very much of my dad's relationship with faith, which it was difficult for him to differentiate between religion and belief. And growing up in the Catholic Church and having friends of his as they were growing up fall victim to some of that abuse, he never forgave that. And his as in my early 20s, as my faith was developing and becoming more a part of my identity, he was very quick to point out hypocrisy. And
that's my point.
Yeah.
What is hypocrisy? Hypocrisy is that what you say and what you do doesn't match. Right?
Right.
Right? And so clearly what has been communicated is that the message is be good. And so if they fall, or they've seemed to be sinful in some way,
yeah,
then you're contradicting the message. But that's not the message. So are we?
Yeah.
So
one of the things I hear you saying, and I want to kind of reflect it back, is that that we need to consider our message is not that we're not getting hung up on the you have to be good, because A, it's not true, and B, it's the wrong message, and it's actually detrimental to what we are trying to communicate. If people are receiving it that way, then what about the way we are presenting it is causing them to receive it that way?
What do you think of? Yes, that's, I think, what I'm saying. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's absolutely something that we really need to consider. That was really a big takeaway for me, and I've already kind of felt that way to a certain extent. You know, when I went out on a date with somebody when I was like 22, and she wasn't a Christian, and after a date, I'm just like, I don't think this is a thing that's going to work. And when I explained it to my dad, he got mad at me for not wanting to go out with her, but my intentions weren't bad. It's just that he received it in a way that said, oh, she's not good enough for me. And really what I was saying is, I don't trust myself in certain ways. I need to be, I'm working on myself, and if I'm not with somebody who is stronger than me or whatever, has their faith better developed than me, then that's going to be challenging. And so I wasn't communicating that well. He wasn't receiving it that well. We each have a certain responsibility there. I can't be responsible for, if my intentions are good, I can control a certain amount of what comes out of my mouth or what my actions communicate, but I can't control how they are received.
Very briefly, dipping that toe into that speech act theory, which, have you heard of that? Do you know what I'm talking about with that?
I didn't hear what?
Speech act theory.
No.
It's that all communication is three parts. One is
Mm,
what I intend to say, what I'm trying to communicate, what is actually said, and then what is actually heard. There's three pieces of it. So I can say, I want you to take your hat off. That's what I'd like in my head. I'd like to have that. And so I would say, Joe, take your hat off. And then what do you hear? Or I could say, Joe, put your hat on. And you could be hearing, oh, it's ugly. My
right,
face is ugly. You may not be hearing what I'm communicating. There's three pieces of it. And we don't know. We can't control
right,
what people actually hear. All I can control is what's actually stated, and what we're trying to do is the hearer is trying to understand what was intended.
right. Yeah. And to me, what I what I hear is try to operate out of your best intentions.
Yes.
Start with the heart, in the right place. You are going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble over your words. There's a certain amount that you have to let go of if your intentions are good. If it's not received the right way, but at least try to start from
Right.
that perspective. That's where I really envision the Holy Spirit kind of taking the garbage that comes out of my mouth and going, I know what you
By
meant.
clearing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Communicating what more than I intended or less than I intended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And but circling back to the grace piece, it's how do we communicate in a way that communicates that I have no merit in myself? Because I'm thinking about those apostles who, at that moment in their lives, would never been hired to do that job by a church. They're completely flawed. They don't know their theology. I mean, they're just a mess, and yet Jesus uses them. And in that, I was like, they're communicating the gospel by the fact that they are they bring nothing to the table except for that their obedience. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are we not doing that in our current culture as a church, and how can we do it better? That piece.
Well, one of the things that you continue to encourage me as a worship leader or as a teacher or just in terms of engaging with people is vulnerability. If you acknowledge that you're flawed, not that you're embracing your flaws and look how screwed up I am, but to say, listen, I'm screwed up, I'm trying. I think that that's an important aspect to communicating to people. Listen, I'm not good, but I'm trying. I really am. And when we say, when we put up these things as like, I can't appear weak, I can't appear like I'm struggling, you're telling people it's not safe to be weak. It's not safe to struggle. And
yeah, I think that's it.
for some people, they receive that as, I'll never be that good. For other people, that means they're looking at you going, well, I know that ain't true, and I'm going to watch. You're going to screw up, and I'm going to catch you doing that.
And then I'll call you a hypocrite.
And then I'll call you a hypocrite. It's the vulnerability, and this is what I was talking to my counselor about, was just the idea of that there has to be vulnerability, authenticity, because I don't get hung up when I screw up in a song, because I do it all the time. Despite my best intentions, I make those mistakes. I'll acknowledge it, and I'm hopeful that people give me the grace that my intentions are good there, that even if I am distracting because I hit the wrong chord or put the capo in the wrong place, that I really want to lead people to the throne. And
I think that's it, though. And it's you communicate that you really want to worship, and what you're bringing is what you got. And if what you got and what you got is flawed,
yeah,
and that's acceptable.
yeah,
Right. And it's a poor analogy, but I remember working in the restaurants, dealing with people who are on a wait list, and people can get really grumpy.
yes, yeah,
They can, but I figured out that if you let them know what's going on and why, most of the time they have no problems with it. If I said, hey, look, this is what's happening, I got a table, they just won't leave, and I can't really kick them out. And I'm working really hard to try and get you over to this other place. Can you wait just a minute? Like, oh, great. Where they don't have a problem, where they do have a problem is when we pretend like everything's fine. And we don't help them communicate. They don't understand.
Right. Yep.
And they get really grumpy. So the analogy is what you just said of, I'm flawed, but I really want to please Jesus. I'm trying to please Jesus. I'm trying to do it right, but I'm going to keep failing. And that's the message. I'm going to continue to fail. Yep. I'm broken. I'm messed up, but I'm continuing to walk in the direction I want to go. And I think that's very appealing.
It is. When I talk to non-Christians, when I talk to people who were Christians and aren't Christians anymore, when I talk to people who've never been Christians, if they give me the opportunity to have a conversation, first of all, that's a blessing if they do.
Yeah.
But I think of
an honor.
I think of my friend Brian, who I grew up with, who is atheist, and we were out in my front yard playing frisbee during COVID because we couldn't stand close to each other. We're playing frisbee, which we're still touching the same thing. I don't really know what we were doing there, but he would throw things out there like these are the things that he's assuming that I stand for, because that's what he's received, either because people have told him what to think or because this is what we have modeled as Christian culture. I'm like, oh, no, that's not it. I'm really sorry that you received it that way. That's really not what it's supposed to be, and I'm sorry.
Right. Saying you're sorry is great.
Yeah, it's is it Blue Light Jazz? Is that the at Reed College setting up a confessional where the Christians apologize to people who came in to the confessional and said, "No, you're not here to confess to me. I'm here to confess to you. Here's all the ways that we've fallen short." That vulnerability is so appealing, is so attractive, because it says you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be great. We're not here to talk about Jesus to make you feel like you've fallen short. I've fallen short.
Right.
I think that's so helpful, and that makes me passionate about Christ. That vulnerability makes me passionate about Christ. And like, as you were listening to my other podcast earlier this week, I lost it during Humble King this week. I could barely get through that.
It's wonderful that you did, though.
And I'm just like, I'm just going to lean in on it. Because all I can think about is, I want to be more like you, Jesus. I want to view the world like you view the world. I want to see the weakest, the hungry, the broken people the way that you see them, because despite my best intentions, I ain't getting it right. And God, please just break me the way that I need to be broken so that I can be more like you.
And perhaps one of the problems we need to do is we as Christians need to drop the mask of that we got our lives together.
Yeah.
I think that would help, because I think the world knows and we know we don't. But we act like we do because we think that's what the world wants to see. And I don't think it is. I think they need, because it doesn't match the message.
Right. I don't like the term winning. I was going to say we're not winning anybody over to Christ by doing that, because that's
persuading anyone.
Yeah, we're not. What we are presenting is not something that makes somebody go, I want what they have. It's more of, well, that ain't true. I mean, that's garbage.
Right.
I mean, people are astute enough. And actually, I mean, over the past 15 plus years, like, young people coming to church will quickly abandon a church if they view that it's not authentic. They can smell, that plasticky, I'm putting on a facade look, and that's not what they want. They want to see the messiness. Not that you revel in it, but just that you're not trying to hide the messiness. And
And
I'm
you
really,
couple that with wanting to trying to get better, even though we're flawed. And there we go. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a pretty meandering conversation, but I hope it's been useful to folks as we talk about it. It's a challenging topic, but man, it's something that I'm really passionate about.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know who's the hardest one to be vulnerable to? It's Christians.
Yeah.
It's not a non-Christian. I can confess my sins to a non-Christian and they are like, okay, good, you're normal. But man, Christians will roast you.
We eat our own.
We need to not do that.
Yeah. It's,
So
yeah, that's hard. Yeah.
that's the last thing I wanted to say. So,
Well, folks, I hope this has been useful to you. I hope this has been insightful. It's a topic I think we could spend a lot more time on. Any hints about what we're going to talk about this Sunday?
I'm tired.
Is that the topic, or is that a statement? Or yes?
Yes. Jesus wants you to rest.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about rest.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Now that Vanessa's back, like this past weekend, there was actually time to rest. And I got,
Rest.
rest
You
is a
need
good
rest.
thing.
God wants you to rest.
I did that this afternoon after I got my shot. And I felt a little guilty about it. I'm like, no,
Nope.
I need to take it easy. A little, don't be lazy, but
No. I'm going to distinguish laziness from rest.
all
They're
right.
two very different things.
All right. I'm looking forward to that. I also want to, I'll be there this Sunday, but the following Sunday, we're going to do the, Joe's, where's Joe's worshiping from? I'll be in Yakima. So we'll test
Oh, you
drive.
shouldn't have said it, because then we would have had a little thing going. Okay, where do you think he is?
Dang it. Well, who listens to this really?
Nobody does.
Okay. If you're listening, and I don't know who you are right now because I'm not logged in, I'll have to fix that. Please don't spoil it. We will play that game. You will be in on the game. But I will be away that Sunday. I'll be leading worship from another place, and give it. And hopefully, I'll set up in a place where you guys can actually have some reasonable chance to guess where I'm at.
Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. We'll see you on Sunday at the service.
See you.